Hello, good afternoon, guys. Here's the member of the Board of Directors of American Academy of Research and Academics. So the reason for today's webinar is to train you guys on how to conduct or how to fill your applications. I know most of the people are applying for Match, and it's the season. It's just like last 2 months before the Match applications, the interview season will start. So I'm gonna introduce our guest, Dr. Sarah. She's the founder and CEO of unmatchedmd.com, and I would just give her a warm welcome. So welcome, Dr. Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Zane.
You're welcome, yeah, Dr. Sarah. So we would like you, if you could start your presentation so I can go next. So I'm just going to explain how it will work. So initially, Dr. Sarah is going to present and how she's going to be useful, how unmatchedmd.com will be useful for you guys. And then you can ask any question you want. And then after that, I'm going to present for the CVs and how to craft your CVs and how to write the PS and all and the other stuff for the math season. Sounds good. So yeah, Dr. Sarah, I think, are you able to share your screen or your PowerPoint?
Yes, I am. Give me 1 second. We'll go ahead and start here. And all right, everyone, thank you for joining us today. And I want to go ahead and get right into it, just to make sure, because I know it's just around crunch time. Thank you, Dr. Zane, for the introduction. Like he said, I am the founder and CEO of Unmatched MD, which I started about 5 years ago. In terms of helping people match, I started creating resources and learning the insides and out of the match and knowing things that I wish I had known when I had applied and how helpful they were for me and for every kind of applicant, for the applicant with the high scores, the applicant with not the high scores. And so I want to go ahead and make sure that everybody understands that and some things that people kind of lose sight about. So let's get right to it. Like I said, welcome to Match 2024. This is going to be about the last process right before you finish your training. And about 206 days away is about the day you submit your rank order list. So from September 27th to February 28th, you want to go ahead and do what you can to get as many interviews as you can. So I know there's been a lot of talk about what's different and what's not. So I think it's very important. I'm sure a lot of you guys, when I was reading over from the forms, this is the first time you're applying. So it's like, how can you tell if what's different if you don't even know what's the same? And what's the same is the very most important part. And it's going to seem very basic, but you'll be surprised on how deep into this process you go into and you forget. And that's why I want to start off with it. So first thing is what's the same in Match 2024 for applicants. It's going to be the same thing. We have an MSPE, school transcript, a ECFMG report, your photograph, your My ERAS application, letter of rec, personal statement. So what does that mean? So that means that every program is going to get an MSPE, a medical school transcript, your ECFMG report if you're an IMG, a photograph, and your My ERAS application. So what are the two parts that can change? So meaning if you apply to 3 different specialties, every single one of those specialties are going to get the first part, but what are the ways that you can customize it? In terms of, you often hear people saying, oh, I made 45 different personal statements or letter of recs. Well, those things are not just program specific. They're also, when you look at the broader picture, the only 2 things you can change in the application. You can't go back and change your grades. You can't change your scores. That one ERAS thing, that application that you're going to fill is going to go to every specialty, every program. So there's no modification. And so you're kind of stuck with just the letter of recs and personal statement. That's going to come into hand a little bit later, but just to keep in mind when you're filling out that My ERAS, like, oh, I'm going to, have one for a different specialty or this one. No, that's going to be one for all. So it's not much tailoring you can do. Everyone's going to see your experiences, all your activities, your honors and awards, just in case you were thinking that you could kind of tailor that, there's not really much you can tailor. So the only thing that you can tailor are your letter of recs and your personal statement. All right. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when you're filling out that MyERS, that is, and once you certify and submit, you will not be able to change anything in that, even when if you have to go through SOAP. The next time you'll be able to change for that is next September, or the next time you have to reapply if you have to. So just make sure that you have that. You're sure about that. So meaning if there's any BLS or any things that you wanted to add in there that you would, you might not be certified now, but you think, oh yeah, maybe I can get certified in December. Maybe you might want to hurry that up and get those certified now, because that is the same application you apply with SOAP. If you have to go off cycle, it's the same application when they say, can I get a copy of your MyERS? So you're kind of stuck with that. So just keep that in mind when you're filling that out, that you're going to be stuck with that application for a year, at least until the next time ERAS opens. Okay, next part is what's the same for residency programs in Match 2024. So the way they accept applications and the way they review applications, which is on the MyERAS platform, which for program directors is the program director's workstation, is still the same. So that means that workstation requires residency programs to create filter criteria to find applicants to interview. They still have to create how they're going to evaluate applicants in terms of ranking them, what documents are going to mean more, what documents. Now, each residency program has to do that for starting their season on this part. So there's not like, all family med programs are going to have the same filters, or every residency program, that is how they begin their ERAS compared to how we begin. Okay. Now, this is the part where everyone's going to think this is very redundant, but the match process is still the same, what do you need to do to match? You have to apply, you interview, and then you rank. So just to keep in mind, everyone, make sure you register for the match, and everyone needs an interview to submit for a rank order list to be to get matched. Now, looking at that backwards, what are the things that you could think of you can do to increase your chance of matching? If you just look at it like this, having more number of interviews, so you have more specialty or more programs to rank. That could be a thing. So you want to increase the number of interviews. Now, however, you only need one interview to match, but just looking at it in how many, what are my ways I can increase? So after you apply, what's the next step that you can do? You want to make sure you get notice, so you're invited for an interview. After you interview, then you're able to rank programs. So that's very important. So apply, get noticed, interview, then rank programs. So that's the main key. Okay. Now let's talk about what's different this year. There is something called the holistic review, where they want to look at the whole applicant. There's been a lot of talk about that, along with the changes that they've made. But one of the biggest changes that I think that people don't realize is that there's no CV. You have 10 experiences. So before, a regular CV, which would have your chronological, order of all your rotations, everything you've done. So, the last time you were in a clinically relevant special rotation, observership. No, now we're just going to have 10 experiences. So you're not going to have that chronological order, meaning, do they know what you're doing right now? Do they know, or, that's something you're going to have to decide. Well, because previously it would all be out there chronologically, everything you've done since, in med school, but now it's just 10. So, figuring out what are those 10 and how they call it is selected experiences. That's going to be something important. So, if you have that gap, do you want to show it? Is this something that's going to be meaningful? Or if you don't have that gap, how, this would be something where you're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick. So those are some things that I would consider. if when picking my 10 experiences compared to an applicant that just went straight out of med school and they took their exams and they graduated, no gaps, they're going to pick their 10 selected compared to someone that there may be gaps and then they're worried that, what will the program think, or how am I going to show that I've been active? Well, then you may want to consider picking one of your most recent experiences as one of those 10. Another thing that's different this year is having the geographic preferences. This is something that you're going to pick three regions, or how they call it, the U.S. Census regions, of where uh, you have a preference towards. So where do you feel close ties to? You can pick three, or you can pick no preference. Another thing will be the setting preferences. When I say settings, that's do you have a rural? Do you like urban? Do you like suburban? Yeah. Do you have a preference for that? Um, After that, what we had previously gone through was the selected experiences. So picking our 10 selected experiences, and then between those 10 experiences, picking the three most meaningful ones. And then the optional one being the an impactful experience, something that may have impacted your journey or that you want to know. Now, keep in mind the impactful experiences is optional. Another change is the hometowns. Previously, you would list only one. Now you're able to list up to five. That can be an advantage. So geographic preferences, we had 9 regions, and you would pick 3. So here you have the option for hometowns to pick 5 different regions. You can, there's other ways that you can show on the application if you're like, well, I have a preference for everywhere. You can pick those 3. You can pick 5 hometowns. You can pick different current or permanent addresses. So there's a lot of different ways, even though it's different. But you kind of have to strategize what way, or what is the outcome that you want. Do you want to focus on all, and how are you going to show all and make everyone kind of feel special? In terms of being able to give a geographic preference, but still not missing out on the ones that you didn't preference. So those are those options that do still exist in the. Now, looking at what else is different is looking at the specialty specific requirements. So one of the biggest things is program signals. There's 22 programs that are 22 specialties that are participating in it. So program signals were created by URAS to help residency programs figure out who to invite for an interview. So this is your key on to get noticed. That you just send a signal. So one of the things, you don't have to write why or anything, you're just signal them. So 22 specialties are going to be participating in that. That is something that I would not overlook at all. It does not cost extra. You do it at the time of the application. There's no harm into it. And actually what they found in the data last year is people were more likely to get an interview, the ones that signaled. Now, like I said, this is just giving them a signal, no reasoning, nothing. So I would not let that opportunity go by. Another thing that's important with what's different were the specialty specific ones. Even though we're looking at program signals and all we have to do to apply to other specialties is change my LORs and personal statements, we still want to make sure that we are meeting these requirements. So each specialty sets the guidelines. So even though each residency program sets the requirements, each specialty kind of sets the guidelines, and it is a choice of a residency program to follow or not follow. So some of those would be for emergency medicine. We know about the SLOE, which is those standardized letter of evaluations. Internal medicine even has one, along with the OB-GYN, orthopedic surgery, and neurosurgery. One of the things is, like I said, this is a program or specialty specific recommendation. You would have to check with each individual residency program whether they're going to value it, whether it's required, or whether it's going to hold weight. One of the recommendations for within the specialties from IM, though, has been, the option for IMGs to be able to submit one of these standardized letter of recommendations for internal med. And the thing about when you submit your letters. Some of them can hold weight. So often you'll see programs will say, we want a letter from a department chair. So that IM letter, IMGs, it might be hard for you to go back and get a department chair letter. Well, you're not going to miss out on that opportunities like in the past where IMGs weren't able to get that. The IM letter gives you the opportunity for you to be able to fill that and hold the same amount of weight. So that is something I would definitely not overlook. It is not new. They introduced it last year, but they are still for IMGs. It can be used this year, so that's also important. Another thing is a lot of the specialties coordinating interview invites. So again, this is a recommendation. Not all of them are going to participate. Not all residency programs will participate. You would have to check with each one of the programs. But the specialties that are doing this would be dermatology, OB-GYN, orthopedic surgery, and neurosurgery. So what does that mean? That they're going to pick they have decided that there will be certain dates that they will send interview invites. So you're not going crazy thinking, when's my next interview invite if you are applying to one of those specialties. Which is pretty cool. Otherwise you're all over the place, but they do have the guidelines. But again, these are specialty recommendations, not requirements, which is important. Another thing we probably heard a lot about was OB-GYN. They're leaving next year, but what about this year? So this year, if you look at them, they have a different deadline for when they, are going to be accepting applications up to, which is October 1st. They have something known as the Alignment Check Index. They even have their own app. So it is no surprise that they're going to be leaving ERAS, but they're completely on a different, their own schedule. And again, not all of them are required to participate, but it is something that they do have, and they do have a list of each program that will be participating. So they're really ahead of the game on this one. So if you are applying to OB-GYN, you want to make sure you look at that for sure this year and next year. Well, they're out of the ERAS, which will be very fortunate for those applicants that apply. So again, like I said, recommendations. So some of the things that we hear about recommendation, virtual interviews. Those are recommendations. They're not requirements, meaning you still want to check with each program. Are they sticking with virtual? Are they doing both? Is it a hybrid? Those are some things that, because it's not a requirement. Same thing with the specialty specific recommendations are they participating in signals? Just because the specialty opted to participate, they had until August 4th as an individual program to decide whether they will participate in signaling. So you want to make sure you get those in, which can be found on the ERAS website as well, along with if they're going to be participating in those coordinated interview invite dates. I kind of like to just call those as the universal interview invite dates. So they kind of like agree to this day we'll send out interview invites. And again, those were recommendations. At the end of the day, residency programs are where the requirements are. And how do you know that? Because each one of them, to start the ERAS application, to accept applicants, they have to set their own filter criteria, their own system on how they're going to weigh documents, whether step 3 matters, whether a standardized letter matters, whether what weighs more, what shouldn't weigh more. So that is why I consider looking at the residency program one as the requirements, and recommendations are just kind of a broad way to understand of where things are going for that specialty, but it's not a like one size fits all for all of them. Again, okay, so now that we know what's different, what's same, and now you're wondering, well, how many specialties should I apply to? How many programs am I going to apply to? And of course, I don't know if many of you thought about this yet, but what is your budget to apply? These are all three things that even you're like, well, no, I'm going to apply to all, every single internal med program, or I have a way I'm going to only apply to 50 programs, or my budget doesn't matter. I'm going to apply to I can apply to everything. Somehow you're kind of going to want to know and be forced to um, rethink that whole process, and start it off with making your budget your game plan. So the reason we say that is, like I said, any one of those ones, like you had a plan, you have a lot of money, or you are only applying to 50. So we're going to start off with here. So if you apply to 50 programs in one specialty, it's $1,100. Applying to 50 programs in 5 specialties, it's half the price at 575. So, unless you really, unless you really make your dollar go more, there is a consideration of looking at maybe I should add another specialty in, even if you didn't want to. Would you really want to spend the same amount for those 50 programs? So that's something to keep in mind. So the more specialties you apply to, applying broad, as they say, it's actually cheaper and you get more out of it. So it's the smarter way. Whether even if you don't want to be smart about your money, you will be able to get more out of it. So like I said, 1,100 or 575 for 50 programs, or even picking 2 or 3. So that should, and again, what are you thinking about? What do you need to apply to other specialties? Changing my letter of recommendations and my personal statement. That's not a bad idea. That's not too bad of a thing compared to $500 more for the same amount. The next part is how many programs to apply to. So, another thing I didn't realize is that there's not an equal number of programs of in each specialty. I know there's no button on ERAS that says select all. You'll notice it's crazy. They'll say search, and you're like search, where there's not a select all button, and there's not an equal number of residency programs in each specialty. There's not an equal number of positions in each specialty. So to give us a better picture, we're going to use the match data from this past March in figuring out, which specialties have the most number of PGY1 positions, and how many are there. So looking at the match data from March, here are your specialties with the most number of first year positions in Match 2023. As you can see, out of all the specialties, internal has 9,700 more than, but everything out there, if you look at it, certain specialties like family medicine only has 5,000, neuro doesn't even have 1,000, surgery has, for categorical, only has 1,600, and then look at the residency program. So you're like, okay, there's a bunch that actually, besides IM and family, it kind of just drops down. There's not even specialties that have 5,000 positions. So that's something that was very interesting, thinking of how many people you come across or read about or see applying, and you're thinking, man, 613. Let's go back. There's not even 1,000 spots for pathology. And of course, this is the minimum that there will be. But in terms of how much will it increase, will there be like there's at least 613 that will be there, but it might go up a little bit, maybe several positions, but it won't go up to like, oh, this year there's about 800 pathology. So just to give you an idea of those specialties, because I know people look at what's competitive, I think the best way to look at this is knowing, how many seats are first available, and then going backwards from there. And then after that, we want to look at the specialties that have the most number of programs. So if you look previously, a specialty that had the most number of first year positions was internal medicine. And now the specialty that has the most number of programs is family medicine. As you can see that like each program, some programs can have 2 residency positions, some programs can have 10. There's not an equal number. So that's something that's going to be different. At the same time, there's not an equal number. So there's a maldistribution of it. So not every specialty is going to have an equal number of programs. Not every program is going to have an equal number of positions. This is something you want to consider. Of you hear about those people that got 5 interviews, 10 interviews, and you're thinking, well, okay, and then you have somebody that had only 1 interview. Well, those 5 interviews they could have had in special programs that only had two spots each. So that's about 10 positions that was available compared to that 1 interview that might have had 15 positions available. So, things are not equal, and this is going to be even more important to know when you pay for your application, because your US application fees are determined by the number of programs per specialty. So, you for each specialty, you're going to have it's going to be a separate cost. So you don't apply based on, the number of positions available. You apply based on the number of programs available. So this is when we go back and go over there, and you could see you would use, if you wanted to apply to every single family med program, that would be 773, which is way over 15 to 20,000 when you use the ERS calculator, which is also a link that I have in there, which can help you, but they don't give you the actual total of how many programs are there. So just to give you an estimate, so each specialty, there will be a separate cost. Another part is, the first 10 programs, it's the flat fee of $99. And then after that, you see this tiered pricing that goes up, which can kind of go up on you. But there's a way to this. So, I know that sounded expensive. Let's also think about, before we think of calculating the cost, there's also some freebies that have been there in the past. So when you're applying to their categorical programs, so for IM, if you're applying to a categorical program and you see a prelim position or a primary care track position, adding those on to your to programs that to apply to, they would be free. So here, that's why I call these the ERS freebies. So when you're applying any IM categorical one, if at that same program you see that there's any prelim or primary care track, go ahead and check them off. Those are free. Same thing for the OB-GYN categorical, check for the preliminary positions. For PEDS, you want to go ahead and check for prelim and primary care track positions at the same program. And same thing for surgery. You want to go ahead and look for those prelims. Those are not going to cost you extra. So you're going to be able to, at first it's always like, oh, should I add them or should I not? Definitely add them. Those are your ERS freebies. At least they have been in the past. So that definitely helps out when you're applying, which leads us to, what's the best way to do this? We want to make sure, apply to multiple specialties. Don't just stick to one. Broaden your options, but also your dollar. And any time that, through the match, if somebody's like, oh, here's a specialty that you weren't applying to, but they said, we want to go ahead and we're going to be able to get you an interview. So you go ahead, let's say this is pathology. It was not something you were, so you're going to apply to this pathology program because so-and-so is going to help you get an interview. Well, if you're applying to one, you might as well look for 9 others in those specialties because you already paid for it. So don't apply. So make sure you apply to at least 10 programs for each specialty, because it's gonna cost you the same price, and you already paid for it if you apply to one. So the other 9 are going to be free. And of course, make sure you look out for those freebies when you're applying to categorical programs in IM, PEDS, OB-GYN, and surgery. And the next part, which I think the worst part I think of ERS is the filters. So filters, which are tools that are designed within ERS to help residency programs sort applicants, actually, in terms of broaden or narrow an applicant pool. It's how they review our applications. They're used to identify applicants that meet a specific criteria. Again, who makes this specific criteria? That's how residency programs, what they do is making that criteria is how they start their season, and they set it individually, not as a specialty, not as a whole hospital, individually. So that is why you want to make sure that, there's no sense of asking, to do, internal med programs like research. Well, which one? Having that broad kind of question is not going to help you unless you don't mind getting filtered out or you're just wondering in general. So, this is why I'm saying why filters matter. So the most important thing, the reason they matter is they can prevent an applicant from getting noticed. So if an applicant doesn't get noticed, that means it prevents them from getting an interview invite. So, those stories that you hear and you just, it just scares you thinking like, could this be me? And, So those are those stories where you're seeing applicants with high step scores and they didn't get any interviews, or applicants that had like clinical experience, high scores, and they still didn't, and you're wondering, could this be me? Or, reapplicants that did everything they could, even added step 3, but they didn't get noticed. Well, because they were getting filtered out. One of the ways you notice that is from no interviews. Or, the people that I feel bad for in terms of customizing your personal statements for each program. Before they even get to the, customizations, there's things that um, kind of that could have filtered them in or filtered out. So, reading a personal statement, you got to first make the cut. And so before we can customize them, I think making sure you don't get filtered out is very important. So those are, making sure you don't get filtered out. I consider these bad filters, like the ones that you'll see when there's score cutoffs, year of graduation, visa requirements, ECFMG certification. So, each program, when you go look up a program in terms of how to apply, they will specify, you have to have your application in. If you are an ECFMG candidate, this is the date we need this, and this. So they will specify, because those are the filters that they're using, along with how many LORs they need, whether it's 3 or 4, whether they want U.S. clinical experience, or they want specialty clinical experience. So those are what I call the bad filters, the ones that kind of, we kind of just are like, okay, well, they said that, but maybe they'll overlook it. There's a good chance that even if they wanted to overlook it, ERAS isn't going to let them because of the filters. However, this year, though, there's something that's different, where we're talking about the holistic reviews and filters. And that is supposed to be looking at the applicant from a broader lens. So, broadening the applicant pool. So the recommendation is that instead of filtering out, you use these filters to add it as a plus factor. So now that things have changed. Before they could use it to, filter you out, narrow the applicant pool, but now they're being encouraged to use it as a plus factor, meaning you want to make sure that you have, you're not over, how would I say this? You're you're not filtering yourself out by not revealing enough, meaning you're worried about making those cutoffs, but you forget to add those green flags that those programs are looking for to make a whole applicant. So some of those we could see are the good filters, as I call, the filters that they're supposed to help us, such as the signals, geographic preferences, setting preferences, experiences. Certain parts of the experiences, when you look up at a program, they'll say we want somebody that had an urban experience, a rural family med experience. You'll probably see that, or an applicant that has any standardized letters, or those are the good filters. And you'll see that those preferences, those are what you could see in terms of where they're adding as a plus factor. So, of course, the first thing is, how can applicants avoid being filtered out? The first is making sure that they have a complete application defined by the residency program. So, like, there's only so much we can change, right? So, do they need 3 letters that make a complete application, or is it 4 letters of recommendation that make a complete application for that program? What is the date that they need the ERAS in? Is there anything that in the personal statement that needs to be there? Is there a certain date that the ECFMG certification needs to be in? Also making sure that you're making all the programs deadlines and requirements. So are there any score cutoffs, your graduation, any requirements for the statement, ECFMG, or visa requirements? So making sure that you meet individual programs' requirements, deadlines, as they define it. And where can applicants find these requirements? Well, first thing is to go to the source, go straight to the residency program website. Another part of the process the residency programs have the option to do in ERAS is they can upload extra information that applicants can find when they search for residency programs. And you'll see it like an eye icon. So when you're searching, when you're logged in, and there will be a little eye icon, and that's for additional information. Now, it's not a requirement. They don't all have to put it in there, but if you see it, do not avoid it. So I usually would look at a residency program's website. Then when I'm applying, you have to already put it in there. Now, if I see that icon, I would make sure there's no extra information like, oh, make sure you add this, you know, excerpt or paragraph in your personal statement. Like I said, it can make a difference in terms of getting noticed. Did you pay attention to those small details? And now back to how Unmatched MD can help in terms of the match. So we help applicants identify those green flags and use filters to get noticed. We do this by posting exclusive insights. We just started a new office hours one-on-one meetings, kind of like a strategy session where they're like office hours, they can schedule them in. We do also have a discussion board, but sometimes I know there are some things that applicants are more personal and private about, so we just started the new one-on-one meetings. We also try to find residency programs with smaller applicant pools. Remember, the key is to get noticed. Smaller applicant pools do help. So we post residency positions year round. We also keep very current on the match requirements and recommendations. So another thing about finding loopholes or smaller applicant pools is making sure you know what's going on immediately. You have to know the rules before you can start looking for the holes in them, and those rules change literally every year. So those keeping current on those are very important. Aside from the match, we also find and post paid positions in clinical, non-clinical research, careers, and jobs for MDs and DOs. And another thing that we also keep in, which is very similar, is keeping up to date with the legislation and looking at alternative pathways to licensure. Just I know there was the recent announcement with the Alabama, which was one of our friends that actually helped with that advocacy. But keeping very much in tune with the requirements, legislation, and up to date with those things are also a lot of things that we have found that our members have been very successful with. And even though it's called Unmatched MD, most people they don't stay long, and they're able to find something immediately. And the name is just Unmatched MD, but however, it has been very effective in terms of finding jobs, finding residency positions. Even finding transfer positions like a residency swap. So it's very effective. Don't be fooled by the name. Now, also how how IMG Helping Hands help, and one of the reasons we enjoy partnering with them is that we find these green flags, but they definitely know how to highlight them. They work with us, we work with them in terms of utilizing the filters and making sure the applicant gets noticed. We will work together if there is someone. They also are great with one of the few services, actually the only ones, that will customize your personal statement for other specialties. Even if without having that dire thing like how am I going to write this other personal statement? They're really good at being able to personalize those statements without having you to think about what do I have to put in this. They know what to do. Also, working with IMGs and making sure to getting those standardized letters and the research modules. Like we said, there were 10 experiences that you could put up, but the number of research on or publications or the that you can put up on the application is still unlimited. So there's one part that's still not capped off, which is the research and doing their research modules. And that was the end for this part. Dr. Zane.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the session, and also it was such a great information, and I'm really appreciate that you came and to just announce and also provide the information to the folks. So, guys, I just want to share one thing with you guys, that if you guys buy the subscription for the unmatchedmd.com, you are going to get a lot of perks regarding, because there are a lot of loopholes. It's not just the traditional way that you will be able to match on March 13. there are a lot of other ways to match. For let's suppose, for example, if I'm a resident or I got sick and I cannot continue my residency, I will just leave my spot, and there will be a lot of spots in the whole over the United States. And these programs will obviously reach out to unmatchedmd.com and the other platforms, like just to provide the information that we have the availability, and then obviously we announce on our social media. Unmatchedmd.com announce on their website that this residency program has a slot. So these slots will obviously be filled as soon as possible, like within 15 days, sometimes even within a week or so. So let's suppose if you are applying for match, but you are getting a position where the residency program is asking you that you can start within the next month, within the next 2 months, because they have a shortage of one resident. So this means you are matched. You will be starting your residency. It will be the off-cycle seat. And similarly, unmatchedmd.com and like as a IMG helping hand, we have like contacts with almost every program in the United States. And whenever there is a newly accredited program, they send the information to unmatchedmd.com, then they announce on their website. And whenever you see a new program listed on the website, you just go there, you apply there, and there is a highly high chance that you will be able to match there. Let's suppose if I talk about this season, after March 13, there were 10 new programs who got their accreditation after March 13. So once they were accredited, they were looking for the residents who will be starting their residency from July 1. So they reached out to like unmatchedmd.com. A few reached out to us as well, IMG Helping Hands, to just announce on our social medias. And then we used to announce on the social media to just give the idea about that there are other residency program who are going to be recruiting residents, and there were a lot of people who went unmatched this season, and they were successfully able to match after the post season, the soap season. So I think there are a lot of loopholes. Even if I talk about the CV, like this season, what happens with the CV? I know you are not gonna be able to write a lot of experiences, just the maximum of 10. But now it's like more complex because they are now asking about what was your role and what's responsibility, and you will be also able to like provide the geographical preferences. And but you can give how many publications do you have, because there is no limit on adding the publications, right? So you will be able to add extra things in your CV. So this is how you're going to be like crafting your CVs this season. And I would really appreciate the efforts of unmatchedmd.com and Dr. Sarah, who is the founder and CEO, who is assisting a lot of IMGs and who are successfully able to match in the residency programs. So before my presentation, I would like to we would like to just take a few questions for like around 10 minutes, for 10 minutes, and then obviously I'm going to present after I'm going to briefly touch on almost every aspect. But obviously we cannot if I'm going to be training for the personal statement, I need at least 1 hour session. So most likely we're going to conduct each session for every service like in the coming weeks. But today we're just going to briefly touch that how or what are the do's and don'ts, because there are a lot of factors which you should be doing right now, and there are a lot of stuff you have to do right now which you should do, which will obviously you will, by doing all that stuff you will be able to match this season. And one more thing I just want to share, I am not trying to intimidate you, but this season be like a lot of emails to our organization that there were people who got 250s, 260s, even 265. A lot of people who went unmatched last year. The reason behind that was there was one thing common, that there was they so there, because it's not just the score that matters. There are a lot of other stuff that matters. For example, okay, what's your score? Did you reach out to the program? Are you able to communicate soundly with the program? Are you How was the interview, and what was the letter? Where was from the letter of recommendation? Because you need a lot of guidance. Because let's suppose if there is a person who is having like 265, but the letter of recommendation he's uploading is fake, do you think anybody will check the person? No, no one will check, because obviously the most preferred uh, aspects which a resident program looks is the honesty. Like they need a residents who can work with them for the next few years. So there's a lot of stuff you guys have to work. So before we proceed, I guess we can take some questions and then we can start with the presentation. So yeah, so floor is yours. Just go ahead and ask any question. If you want to just type it down, that's fine with us. If you just want to unmute yourself, ask questions, go ahead.
Okay, so I do have some questions, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the session. It was really great. And yeah, so the first question is in the experiences section, can we write about rotations in the US as one experience and then comment on, for example, the three observerships I did? Could that work?
Okay, so what I have understood from your part is that you are asking about if you're writing for the experiences, because you can mention up to 10 experiences, but you will be able to explain only three experiences. So are you
Yes.
talking about that which three experiences you should write, right?
Also, in the initial part, like when we're writing the 10 experiences, there is a descriptor to that too. So I'm talking about that as well.
Oh, okay. So I think so for
So,
this, but
sorry, Dr. Zane. So for the 10 experiences, you're going to list which were the most, which you want programs to see about you in terms of, I think you're getting it confused with the three meaningful. So within the 10 experiences, you can list whichever one. And then after that, there's another section of which were the three most meaningful. And the way that you would describe them is, having these key characteristics, or having these program um, key takeaways that you would want the program to know. What were the things that you learned? And that's kind of a drop down menu, which I'll let Dr. Zane do his part, and I'll add into the chat in terms of what that looks like.
Okay. So what I want you to ask is like if someone did three rotations, can they count all of them as just one experience to save up space on experiences?
Um, so you would write them down as one experience in terms of, instead of, now was that experience in the same specialty?
No. So for example, one's in family medicine, one's in cardiology, one's in infectious disease.
okay.
I would write them individually. What would you
Okay.
say,
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Zane?
think I would also write them individually. The reason behind that is because, candidates make a lot of mistakes by just mentioning the conference they have attended 5 years ago. Because we don't have to extend our CV by making a lot of pages to just sound that like we did a lot of stuff. Because the RAS CV means that you have to write the meaningful experiences, even if you are just mentioning a few experiences, but they should be meaningful, not that you are just attending doing a volunteer experience for 2 hours in a blood bank like 4 years ago, and you're just
Got it.
trying to mention that in your CV. If you have a lot of other stuff, then obviously focus on the stuff which really matters. And one more thing, obviously you are going in the residency programs, so you have to think that what's the most common requirement from the residency programs. It's the US clinical experience. If you have three observerships from the three different places, then I would definitely recommend that prior to write in the separate sections, like a separate parts, and consider the other experiences which you have to just decide that which experience you should write or which you should not.
Sure, sure. So, for example, as I mentioned before, so one of them is a family medicine experience. So and I'm applying for internal medicine. So, can I make one of those experiences as one of the impactful experiences, or should I use an internal medicine experience as the most impactful?
So my question for you is, are you just applying for IM or are you applying for FM as well?
Just I am.
Okay, if you are just applying for IM, then if you have three IM experiences, then I would recommend writing all three experiences. Now, but what most of the people do, they also apply it to IM, they also apply to FM as well. So now you can just write FM also as one of the most impactful experiences. The reason behind that is because even when I was in med school, even everybody who is a medical student, they rotate right in almost every specialty, orthopedics,
Mhm.
gastroenterologists. And if you see American people, like the American graduates from American, they would apply for the IM, but they would get a letter recommendation, two from IM and one from a gastroenterologist or one from a OBGYN because they did a rotation. Because
Mm,
what letter of recommendation means is that the person is recommending that person. And
mm,
also, when you are in the med school, if you are doing other rotations, you can get other specialty letters as well. But that letter should, your letter writer should indicate at the end that this person is interested in internal medicine, even
mhm.
if you're getting from surgery, even if you are getting from the other specialties.
Got it. Yeah, so I can include my family medicine as an impactful experience and talk about.
Okay, so if you are including that, then I think so it will be good because for IM, if you even if you are applying for FM, it doesn't really matters. But because everybody try to they're first because for IMGs, most of the people try to get into IM. So that's why the residency programs know that this person's first preference would be the internal medicine. But the family medicine people will not like that you treat them as a as an option. So now they really want to look, okay, so if you don't write it as a meaningful experience like the family medicine, I don't think so they're going to consider you for interview because obviously they're gonna, if
Yeah.
family medicine experience is not one of the impactful for you, then why are you even applying for family medicine?
So what you're saying is I can use the family medicine experience if I'm only applying to IM as an impactful experience because I really enjoyed that rotation here.
But what I'm trying to say is, for example, if you are applying to just IM,
Mm-hmm.
it's advisable to you can have both options. You can just mention that you had experiences for IM that were impactful, or you have a choice to mention one of the family medicine as most of the
Got
impactful experience. But if you are applying to FM as well, then you definitely have to add FM as one of the impactful experience.
Mm-hmm. And the ERAS also asks for a mailing address. Can that be a US mailing address, or should that be a US mailing address?
It should be the US mailing address. And also one more thing, they ask the permanent license, sorry, the permanent uh, officer address and also the temporary address. So
Mhm.
it's advisable to write two different addresses, like one from, let's suppose if you're applying for in New York program, but you're also applying in Illinois program. So
Mhm.
if you're having more interest in New York program, then
Mhm.
Bájalo, mi amor, bájalo
I
para
would
que
advise
se... Amor, pasito,
that
pasito, mi amor. Que está muy batido, mi amor, se va a vomitar.
Yeah.
Ábrele la puerta.
So like I have my relatives in
¿Dónde
New York, so I can use their mailing address, right?
estabas? No te veía, gatito, ven. ¿Cómo les fue con Mira, está asustado. Mi amor, dile al papá la caja de popó. Rápido que mira que entró a hacer popó.
okay. So
Okay,
are you
thank
guys able to hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. So I'm saying if I have my relatives in New York, so I can use their address as a temporary address and even as a mailing address.
Okay. So what I would recommend is you write one address for New York and one address for Illinois if you're applying for both programs. The reason is because the New York programs consider most of the IMGs like who are nearby, or so it's not just for New York, it's like state specific. Like if you are applying for Alabama, then Alabama will be looking for if the person has ties with the states. So I think using two addresses that are from the US is advisable, like the permanent and the temporary.
But the thing is, I don't live in the US, so I only have relatives in, for example, in two different states.
Okay.
So
So,
yeah.
another thing is when they're looking for people to invite for interviews, you're going to say, you remember those love letters, like, I can make it next week. One of the first things, if they need to find somebody to interview, of course, if they're not using Thalamus as an interview scheduler, they're going to go look who's local. So, you put a risk in there. If you put New York and they call you in, you could say you're on vacation, but there's another place you can also add that into having close ties would be hometown. But when you put that address there, the way they use it is saying, okay, well, I need a local candidate that can show up. We just had a last minute cancellation, and can they
Mhm.
show up for this interview tomorrow? That kind of is the purpose, and that's also kind of way of saying, hey, that's also kind of way of showing that you have that thirst when you don't have any interviews. Like I can show up tomorrow. Not everybody can say that unless they're in that state.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be in the US at that time. So I can just put my permanent or temporary address in the country I live in, and I can put a mailing address, for example, for New York, so I can at least get any correspondence there. How about that?
Yes, so I think so. It's advisable to use both of the addresses in the US, but if you're unable to do so, but use at least one address where you can do correspondence from the states.
Okay. So because I have relatives in two different states, but as Dr. Sarah said, so the situation could be like they could call me for the interview, but I wouldn't be here.
Okay, but obviously, for example, if they're calling you for the interview, yeah, but you can tackle the situation by that you are out of states these days.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can
got
I reschedule the interview, stuff like that.
it. And what's the latest date to give step 3 for this match if I want to get an H1B status?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good question. So for most of the programs, you have to take your USMLE step 3 before April. But a
Oh,
few programs also have a deadline in March that you have to take before the match announcement.
And in order to get your score in before the match thing, you want to have it done by December 31st if you want the score to
Yeah,
come in.
because when you take step 3, it's gonna take like 2 weeks to get your scores. So I think the next question is from Danish. There are three more questions. So Danish, do you have a question?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yes. So my question is related to the letters of recommendation. Uh, I think it's a very common question among the platforms that I've seen, that if you are unable to acquire uh, 4 LORs before the end of September, uh, is it advisable to wait for next year, or should you apply this year and use LORs by doctors that are based in your country? Because, like, what is the weightage? What should we prefer if we face such a problem?
Okay. So to answer this, I guess it all depends on your scores as well and the year of graduation. So let's suppose if a person have like great scores like above 255 in both exams or like in CK, then it's advisable that you can apply even if you don't have the US clinical experience, because you can upload your own letter of recommendation from your home country. And then because there are a lot of programs that don't require US clinical experience, they can consider you for the interviews. But let's suppose if a person who is having like average scores like less than 240s or 220s or 230s, then but they are applying this season, they don't even have the letter of recommendations, then I think it's not advisable to apply. It's better to just go for the clinical experiences, make contacts, and then apply next year with the full energy.
Okay, and just one more question.
Yes.
How much do you advise adding LORs after the end of September? Like, if you have observerships or during November or December,
Okay.
like, do you advise that? Is it
So,
any, does it
most of the
recommend?
program, they require three letter of recommendations at least to review your application, because sometimes the application is filtered out because you are not have uploaded all the LORs. So, but the maximum number of LORs you can upload to any program or assign to any program are four. So what most of the people do, for example, let's suppose if they are heavy, they already have three letters, they apply with the three letters, but they start doing rotation, for example, in another hospital in the month of September or October. If they are getting the letter recommendation at the end of the October, they are gonna get the letter and then assign the fourth letter to all the programs again, and then they would shoot an email that I just did an experience, and then I'm just gonna add, will you be able to please re-download my application or review my application, because I have uploaded another letter of recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dr.
Welcome. So the next question is from Reen.
Yeah, hello. I just
Yes.
wanted to ask that can you ask the US attendings you know to write you a letter of recommendation if you've not done a US clinical experience?
Okay. So this means that if you are asking to any LOR, any person who you did not work to, but how would they be even willing to give you the LOR? This is a question for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like if they know them, like whether they have come to your home country, they have seen you working here or something like that.
Okay, so there is a one loophole here is they can give you the letter of recommendation, but then they can write in the letter that you did not work with them directly, but you know this person because you are from the same country, but and also then it should not be just because of the family, because you are your family friends and that they are giving you the letter, because that letter will easily be caught up. So they could write exactly what what does that mean, the letter? Like, for example, let's suppose if got a letter for recommendation from the president of the Medical Society of Delaware, although I did not work with him, but gave me a letter, but he did not write anything like that, that I shadowed him or got a clinical experience, because obviously that would be unethical and a lie. And he mentioned that how I was contributing in the Medical Society of Delaware. I was doing like I was a member of their committee to just make their bylaws and stuff like that. And we were also like doing a campaign that week where there are like around 10 states where you can work as a physician before starting residency. So I was working with for the state of the Delaware with the legislative assembly. So he was able to write all the stuff, my outreach stuff, which could be useful for the leadership positions later on. So he gave me a letter of recommendation, and that letter of recommendation, I think so, was one of the most useful letter, because that letter of recommendation, because I had three other letters from different programs where they mentioned about my clinical skills and everything. But then one letter was about my personality, also what did I do for the US. Like I'm contributing to the legislative assembly and I'm contributing to the medical society. So it all depends on the circumstances.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so the next question is from Aruhi. So Aruhi, would you like to ask the question now? Okay,
Hi.
oh yes, go ahead.
Sorry. So my question was, I'm actually 9 years away from graduation,
Mhm.
but I have been active. Like I've worked as a physician assistant in Canada, and I'm now in Florida working as a clinical care coordinator. How? So I understand that my application would get automatically filtered out from ERAS. Do you have any advice for me on what I could do?
So yeah, I have a few friends who matched last year, and one was a graduate from 1998. One
Okay.
was from 2005, 2007. So this is they were able to match. So if you are filtered out, this does not mean that you cannot match,
Okay.
because you can bypass the filters. Like by how to bypass the filter? There's a lot of ways to bypass. Like first of all, whoever will start reaching out to the programs within June, July, just to be in touch with the programs and explaining that, okay, I am interested in that program, and then also to mention what are the few examples, then how I would be a good fit for them. So then they would, even if you are filtered out, when you email them, they will respond to your email and they will go say, okay, we are going to review your application. So then they are going to review your application. If they think that, okay, so even if the person is is an older graduate, like from 9 years old ago, they would consider your application if you are having other credentials that are up to the mark for them. But because a lot of people get interviews by just emailing and then by calling the programs, because this is the right time. I don't think so. This is the only right time, because you should be reaching out to the programs even before June. Because if obviously if you are building a relation with anyone in like after September, it's very hard, because one of the program director, he was just sharing with me that he used to get like more than 500 emails every day. And if you are getting a lot of emails every day, then obviously it's very hard to reply to everyone. So these are like the tips and tricks which you should apply, which you guys should even call the program if you are in the US. So even if you are not in the US, just call the coordinator, like program coordinator, and then they just ask like, okay, so you are interested in their program, and then what are the like qualities they are looking for and for their applicants, or what are the a few factors which can lead to just cross the filters, and also just they are going to get an extra number of interviews, but just to be able to get the advices from them. So another question which is in the chat box. So home country gynecologist applying for IM and gynae, chances of matching old graduate 2013. I think it will be the same, because if you're old graduate 2013, like 9 years, then just reach out to the programs, build a connection with them, or sometimes even go do clinical rotations. And one thing I would recommend is definitely open the website ACGME try to find newly accredited programs. And second thing which really helped me as well is the unmatchedmd.com subscription, because I was able to know what are the new programs, because they are going to upload almost a lot of positions, like wherever the positions are, right? Either they are the limited license physician positions in across the country, or if they are new residency programs who got their accreditation after March, they're gonna just upload in their system, and then once you open the website, you will be able to just email the program, and then you have a lot of chance of applying, because it's just the strategies. And even if you are because I'm a person who is not a good test taker, I don't have like great scores, just just average scores, low average scores, but still I was able to do. Okay, so next question. Anyone? Okay, so Aruhi, Uzma. So Uzma have the next question, right?
Yes, hi. First
Yes.
of all, thanks for the this session. It was really helpful. My question is that I'm an old grad as well, and but I have work experience here in the U.S. And when I was leaving that job to focus on my steps, they gave me hard copies of LORs, and I have 3 really good letters of recommendation. I had a very good standing there, but now that I went back and asked them, those 3 people have retired. Those 3 physicians have retired. One of them was the chief, and I really want to use those letters. Is there a way to use them? They're on a hospital letterhead too. So I feel like I want to use them in my application, but I just don't know if they work.
Were they out of country or from the US?
It's from the US here in California.
Oh, okay. If it's from the US, then just reach out to them, explain them the situation, that it's how important the letter of recommendation is for you. Even if they have retired, they will be able to, because obviously if they have spent a lot of years in a hospital, it's not hard to get the access of the letterhead, right? They can just take the letterhead from the hospital and then upload, because they are not doing anything wrong, because obviously got an experience from them in the same hospital, then they can just get the letterhead for you, write the same thing on that, and then upload, and you just waive the letter.
Okay. Okay. So then just reach out to them. Thank you.
Yeah. And also one more thing, so if you have to reach out multiple times, do that, because once you get the letter of recommendation, that's what matters for you, right? And also, when sometimes the people are busy, but by not seeing the emails, and then if you are emailing them, sometime never. Like, for example, let's suppose you emailed today, they didn't reply. Might be you can just remind them after 4 or 5 days, or might be a week or so. Then you could just tell them about how important the letter of recommendation for will be for you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so the next question will be Aruba. Arub, sorry.
Yes, that's Arup Fatima. So, hi everyone. My question is about LORs again. So, let's say someone wasn't able to physically attend observerships in the US. How significant are letter of recommendation from tele-rotations?
Okay. So what we recommend is, the first of all, how we categorize the letter of recommendation is, the most useful letter will be from the university hospital and hands-on. I know which is very rare, because university had letter hospital LOR, and if it's hands-on, it's very rare. That will be the most useful. And the least useful letter of recommendation will be the tele-rotation one. But there is one thing. For example, if you are getting the hands-on letter of recommendation from a university hospital, but that's just a generic letter, if you compare that with a clinic letter, but the clinic person has given you a specific letter to your personality, he have added a lot of examples for you, for your personality, your strength, and the weakness you're working on, it's better than that letter recommendation. So it's both ways. It depends on what type of letter is that, and also what's written in the letter. For example, and if you are unable to get the letter recommendation from the US for the like observerships, then I would definitely recommend to upload the tele rotation, because obviously it will hold value.
So that will sort of help you from getting filtered out altogether.
Yes, it will help you in the in from filtered out, but sometimes there are two filters. The first filter is that is it the US person who is giving you the letter recommendation, and the second filter few programs has is it a virtual experience or not.
Okay.
Yep. But I think you have to give a try. You take a, just upload the letter of recommendation that's from the US. That's always preferable. But also give spend if you are not in the US, you have like done three telerotations, then I would advise to use two letters from the telerotations and one letter from your home country. Because if you're not uploading a home country LOR when you don't have any US clinical experience here in the US, this means that you are not considering your home country experience as a valid experience. So this is how the program director would think. I think so.
Right. And Dr. Zain, could you also share some light on like specific, some specialities that overlook for the US clinical experience?
I could you rephrase the question, please?
Some specialities don't consider USC too important, that don't apply that filter while filtering candidates out.
Okay. So I think so. It's the IM internal medicine that's most IMG friendly, and also there are a lot of programs which don't require US clinical experience to consider the application. I think rest of the application, most of the specialties, they need the US clinical experience. And also there are different types of because if you are saying US clinical experience, by the clinical experience means that you did hands-on clinical rotations, not just the observerships. So it's also advisable if you are not able to get the hands-on in any hospital, get the hands-on 1 or 2 months from any clinic, or and then upload both letters, like one from the clinic that's hands-on experience and one from the hospital, which is observership. Because there are maximum, I think, 4 to 5 hospitals which will allow you to do hands-on experience. Because to get a hands-on experience in the hospital, they have to do a lot of stuff for you, like getting malpractice insurance, getting insurance for you. It's a lot of work on their on the hospital's head.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zain.
Welcome. Okay, so there is a next question from Tanmay. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. This was quite informative. Thank you for this. So I plan on doing university rotation soon. So I've applied for a few and I'm waiting for the reply. I'm not applying for this year's match, but I wanted to ask you particularly how to approach someone for a personalized LOR at the university, and who do I approach, and how do I better my chances at getting a more personalized and valuable LOR?
Okay.
Thank you.
So there are a few stuff which I just a few tips and tricks which I used and it worked. When I was doing a rotation at my place, what I used to do is I was creating a portfolio for myself. The portfolio means that whatever patient, like for example, if I'm seeing 1 to 2 patients every day, I used to document. I wasn't allowed to document in the EMR system, but I used to document in my notebook. And I was also able to learn whatever I learned from the I would say from that experience. I was documenting that with the examples and everything right now. But then when I was reaching out to the letter writer, obviously it's unethical to say that can I write my own letter and then give it to you for that. But obviously, the a person who sees a lot of patients and who have a lot of students, he would forget your specific cases, right? So now this is a way that I used to upload my CV and also give them my portfolio, that this is the stuff which I learned from you, and this is the stuff which I learned from the faculty, or I the presentation I gave, I whatever I did in the hospital, I used to document in a format. So I would ask him if you could please give me a personalized and strong letter of recommendation, because being an IMG, it matters for me that I need a lot of strong letter recommendations. I put my all effort. I did a lot of work. I was there at 5 a.m. and I was willing to stay for the extra time, like even for sometimes 7 p.m. I was good with the residents stuff like that. If you because what I have learned here in the US is you have to brag yourself. If you don't do that, you no one will know you, because for example there will be American graduate who will just attend for a 2 hour like a workshop, and then he in the interview he's going to explain in such a manner that program director is going to think that this is the best person in the world, he's the best fit for our program. And there would be another IMG who would do clinical ICU rotations in their home country for like 48 hours, even if or if they're doing psychiatry, they would even do the complex procedures like doing ECTs, electroconclusive therapies, but still they will not be able to explain in the interviews, and the program director would just think, oh, he's a fake person, or he does not know anything, right? So this is how that you have to tell other people that what are your strengths. Does it answer
Thank
your
you,
question?
sir. And also, like, along with the portfolio of cases, did you also like highlight your personal traits that you want in the LOR?
Yes, you should highlight that these are my traits. If you would, you don't have to like command him that you should do that. You could ask them then just in a polite manner that these are my strengths. If you would like to please add some examples, this would be helpful for me and blah 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 like that.
Thank you.
So there is another attendee, Siri. Do you have any other question? Oh, if not, then I can just okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, so I wanted to ask if we select 3 geographical preferences and then we are applying to a program who is not included in those preferences, does it help hurt our application?
No. So no, it won't hurt yours because programs are only going to see if you're signaled in the if they're in that geographic preference. So if you choose not to apply, it's going to be the same thing that they would see. So if they're not going to know where you signal unless they're in that division.
This means that if you are signaling to the New York programs, they will be able to see that you signal them. But if you are applying to some Philadelphia program, but you did not signal them, they will not be able to see the programs who you signal.
Thank you for answering that.
Welcome. And also one just a quick fact, and also regarding the interview preparation, what people would reach out just after the September, they would say that, oh, we need a preparation for the interview, and then if we could help them. But interview preparation starts from even before the USMLE journey starts. But what we could do is, like, if, for example, if you are in the States and if you are applying for the match season, start your interview practice as soon as possible, even before match season starts, like from June or July, because like some people are just weak in the communication skills, and sometimes like when the English is not their mother language or the national language over there, but then it's very hard because to learn English sometimes. But I think it's doable because it's just mere language, and then you can learn that. But try to practice as soon as possible in the very start of the season. And regarding the interview preparation, I would also like to share one of the example. Uh, whenever you interviewed at any program, when they ask a question about from you that do you have any family or do you have any association with our state or our anything nearby? So what most of the people would answer is, yeah, we have, even if they don't have, they answer that we have our family friends. It will be a great opportunity to live nearby. And because it's going to be residency is very tough, we are going to have some like fun time with the friends and family. And then and this is all some this is something which the program wants to hear. And also because the most of the program prefer the people nearby. But I would like to share my example. There was a program who was interviewing me, and before it was like when I was interviewing, the day before, there was one of my friend of a gastroenterologist in a program. I was just discussing that if they ask about what's my like area ties with them, what should I say? Then he said the same thing that you could say about just I have a friend, I have a family over there, stuff like that. But I wanted to challenge myself this time. So let's see what happens. So they asked me a question that, okay, the program director said, oh, could you please tell me if you have any area ties with this state or this hospital? I explained that program director that I don't have any association with this state, neither I have been to this state any, like I didn't come to this state at any point of time in my life. But I just want to explain one thing. If you see my CV, the number of versatile experiences I have, like from different states, the movement is the least concern which an IMG would have. And if you talk about me, if you would say that, oh, here's and start your residency tomorrow in your program, I would just take a flight and come to your program today and then start the residency program like tomorrow. She really liked the answer, and after like 3 days, like so when the interview was over, she texted the program coordinator that the email me that they want to talk to me like for additional 10 minutes. But I was so dumb that I wasn't able to see my email, and I saw the email the next day. But when I reached them back, and they said, "Oh no, the program director has gone; she's on vacation." But then after 3 days, they offered me a position. So it all depends on how you are crafting your answers. If you want to challenge yourself, but be genuine, be authentic, but try to. If you really want to go somewhere, just be specific and say yes, we want to go there. And residency, getting residency is not like this. Residency is like this. You have to grab your position. It's not just you're asking your residency that, oh, could you please give me the residency? It's just grabbing the spot.
Hi, Dr. Zain. Can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for organizing such a helping seminar. Actually, I have three questions. Like, I don't is as this is my first cycle, so I don't know how to apply in pre-match. Like, is it different from other than the match cycle, or is it same?
No, it's different. Like, it's not there are not a lot of differences. For example, when you go on the Residency Explorer and the Frida to just see what are the programs, there are two factors. The first one is the programs that participate in NRMP, and the second would be the programs that does not participate in NRMP. So all the programs who do not participate in NRMP are the pre-match programs. So if the program is participating in NRMP, this means they will be not announcing their match season, like match positions before March 13. They will just wait for the NRMP to announce their positions on March 13. But if they're not participating, then obviously they will be offering them the positions within like sometimes like November, December, January. So yeah, this is how it works.
Okay. So it's basically the results. It's not about application date, right?
It's not the application date. So because every program have a different application date, most of them would start considering the application by after September 28th. But to the last date to apply, I think for a few program it would be like October 10, then December. Like it varies.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. I also talked to you about it that I'm applying for IM and FM both, and
Mhm.
as because I don't have any FM LOR, not have still no observership, but I'm trying to do it. But still, if I couldn't get, can I upload my home country LORs of PEDS and gynae?
So if you're uploading PEDS and gynae LOR from your home country for family medicine, that would be a little bit not a red flag, but I would consider if I were a program director, I would consider that okay, is this a person who is applying in both gynae, peds, or family medicine? So even if you are getting letter of recommendation from your home country, why don't you get from the person who is from IM or FM? I know here there is no specific distribution in some countries, but the PCP or the IM person can be considered for the FM from the home country.
Okay, so PCP works. Okay, I can have PCP LORs. Okay. So is it can I upload more than one or home country alert should be only one?
It depends. Like how many LOR do you have from the US?
For FM I don't have any,
Okay, and do you
but
have
for
IM?
yeah I
Are they
have three. Yeah.
Okay, you have three for IM. Then I think it was advisable to get three from the US and then one for the I would say, from home country. But it's also advisable whenever you ask your letter writer to ask him to upload two letters. The first letter for IM and the second letter he could explain in the last paragraph about your FM interest, and then he can give you the two letters. So for the FM program, you could upload the FM letter, and for the IM letter, you could just upload the IM letter.
And
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to add that, on Unmatched, we also post pre-match programs all throughout the year because they do change from every year.
Okay. Yeah, because Unmatched MBA, it's like .com is like one of the best resource. It's library. It's not just the positions. They post everything, almost everything. They're like, even if, for example, research positions in the university hospitals, some paid positions, like for example, this season we are assisting for the older graduate, like if they are like qualified, like if they are done with their USMLE step 1 2, and most of the state also requires step 3 as well. We are trying to assist them to get positions as a limited license physicians in New York and some other states, because now there are like around 11 states which offer this position, and you work like as a resident, because you get your NPI number, you get your license number like a resident, and then you're basically just like a transitional year thing, which will be like a prelim or transitional year thing. You get your US clinical experience, because normally it's whenever you work in the hospital, it would be considered observership. But when you are doing under your name, under your license, you are prescribing medications. It's considered US clinical experience, and the programs will really consider a person who already know a lot about their system, who already has the license, and then it's because it's easy for them.
So are there any program in Illinois too, or
Yeah,
Chicago?
Illinois provide the opportunity for if, but you have to have the USMLE step 3 as well before getting the license. If you have step 3, just apply from the Illinois department. They will give you the temporary permanent, so you temporary permit license, and then on the basis of that license, you can get a position in like a few areas like in the Illinois, where you can work as a physician under supervision.
Okay, and
Before
just last
before
question.
Yes, go ahead.
As we all are worried, but I was very worried about the uh, because we are juggling around many things. So I also have to work with my PS CV, and I didn't start even application yet, and I had also left with my third observership, and I am also preparing for step 3. I'm also mother and lots of things. So I don't know what to do, like in my preference list, on the top of my preference list, like what thing should I put on the top? Sometimes I try to do step 3 as soon as possible, but obviously it taking some time. But till then, I'm left lagging behind the PS and other things, which
Mhm.
really the requirement of the match. So I don't know what to do. Some
Okay.
people say
So
that
if
just
some
give your exam at the end of August and then start application, and some says no, start as soon as possible, and step 3 you can do later on, and then email them that I have given exam.
So it depends on, would you mind asking your score? You can say no if
Uh,
you're not comfortable.
No, no, it's fine. I'm 252 in step one and 256 in step two, but I'm all
Okay.
grad 2018.
Okay. So if I were you, I would not consider doing step 3 before September. I would focus more on the other stuff, because step 3 is not a requirement. It adds into your CV, but it's not a
Mhm.
requirement. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would recommend if a person who have like scores like to 20s to 35, then I would ask him to, yes, to you should take step 3 to just prove the program that you will be a good fit because you have improved in step 3. But for your case, you have scores to above 250. The
Mhm.
best thing I would advise is to work on your application, the personal statement, the CV, the reaching out to the programs, like calling them, writing letter of interest and stuff like that, and preparing for the interviews, and also reaching out to the different. Don't just reach out to just like one person from a program. At least target 3 to 4 people from a single program. Like one, you could email program director, associate PDs, or program coordinator, one of the two of the residents. So just
Okay.
to seek their guidance that you're looking for to apply to their program, and also attend the virtual houses of all the programs, because the virtual house, if you're attending the virtual houses, program director programs have a list of people who would attend the virtual houses, and they really consider those people for the interviews. And one more thing is for the personal statement. I have seen a lot of redundant words like in the field. What happens is, for example, let's suppose if there's any unprofessional people or might be some IMG just doing earn some extra money, they would write just the personal statement for the people, and they would just, if for example, if there is a professional service, like for example they charge, like let's suppose if a professional service charges like 200, they would charge like around 150. What the IMGs do to just say $50, they would consider or seek their help to write the personal statement, and that they would what they do mostly is they have the like a format of just one personal statement, and they would just use the same redundant words and give you the personal statement. And uh, the US is large, but the world is small, because
Yeah.
there are like around just 500 programs where all IMGs apply, and the people are very much connected to each other these days. Like the people are a lot of there are a lot of connections to each other, and then it's very easy to find out that okay, so this person has written a personal statement that is coming again and again with the same redundant words in a same manner. So the program would consider before sending the interview if they found something like that. So this is one of the like the tips that also like focus on the personal, because the personal statement, what you do is if you have to seek help, because the format of the personal statement really matters, because from the last 2 years, the initially all the interviews were in person, and the people like the program was able to know more about you guys by meeting you, because if for example let's suppose if we are meeting 20 person like 4 hours, we can tell about their personality, or will he be a good fit for us or not. But now, since it's just a virtual, and it's very hard to guess or judge people on virtual workspace, so what programs do is they consider more on what's on your CVs, one on what's on your application, what's on your personal statement. Otherwise, I would say initially, I think a personal statement, the programs would, most of the program would read like before, after sending the interviews to you. Okay, so this person has good scores. He's filtered out. He said, let's send this person a interview, and then before interview they would quickly go through the personal statement to just know more about you. But now they are considering the personal statement and CV to consider for the interviews a lot more as compared to before. And regarding the personal statement, which I was about to mention, I just jotted down a few steps. Like, it should be that you have to, what the most people would do a mistake. Every personal statement has the same story, that they had some family member who died or who was suffering from any ill disease, and then that's was one of the reasons they started their journey in the medical field. Now, the program don't like this, because they don't want to know why you became a doctor, because you are not applying for a med school here. You're applying for internal medicine or whatever specialty you're applying. What they need to know is, why are you applying to IM? So for the first paragraph, you just tell them more about yourself, like just a brief, like your strength, like what about you, your personality, then jump towards the specialty right away, that why IM. Don't say that though I decided to become a doctor at the age of 7, or, and what other thing program would not like is a person who would say, I decided to become cardiologist plus electrophysiologist, who would specialize as a interventional cardiologist at the age of like 11, or when I was in med school. Because there will be a lot of people who would even complete their residency in IM, then they would see that, oh, okay, so this is not the field for us. They would do another residency in some other field, because we are growing, and we don't know, like for example, even if I'm doing any residency today, that if I think so that this does not align my future goals, then I would even consider doing it again in another specialties, and a lot of people do that. So what the program want to hear is that a person is flexible enough. He know his strengths. He also know his weaknesses, and he's improving those weaknesses. And also flexible in terms of your thought, that you are not saying that I decided to become an interventional cardiologist at the age of 7, because obviously where is the flexibility if you're saying this? So you have to be tell them, okay, even if you're applying for IM, you could say, okay, for IM, this is my main goal for apply for IM, but I am open towards some other options and explore more when I come into your program. That what are my other options? Like because sometimes if like if let's suppose if I'm a person like I have an interest in the dermatology and also in the leadership positions. So I'm trying to tailor my experiences like in the form of electives more towards the derma electives, and then also so I can consider doing the procedures like Botox and all the like the beauty procedures, because this is my goal is which I have to do. But and there is no harm in telling the program. But one thing I would recommend is if you are applying for IM, just stick to IM. Don't dive too much into any specialty. Don't just write card you want to be a cardiologist. The reason is because if you want to be a cardiologist, you could do so, but you have to prove that why if you wanted to be a cardiologist after IM residency, then why? Then the program might ask the why. So are you a person who even don't know even how to read the EKG? If you are that kind of person, then the program would not consider you, because they are gonna say, okay, it's the every IMG story that every IMG want to do residency in IM and every IMG want to do residency, sorry, fellowship in the cardiology. But for example, let's suppose if you have interest in cardiology from your med school, it's not wrong completely. You are doing a lot of research from your med school. You are even you are even spending time with the cardiologist to learn more about EKGs, more about the echoes, ultrasounds. Then you can consider telling the program, bragging the program that okay, I am interested in cardiology. It's not just because everybody else does this, because this is something because I want to do this. Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Zain.
You're welcome. So I think so. I mentioned about the personal statement. I think I also want to focus a little bit on the interviews. So for the CV, one thing is important. As Dr. Sarah was mentioning about the geographical preferences, and it's like a performa kind of thing, which you have to signal the programs. And when I was conducting like interviews for the folks we were training, our organization was training for to the folks for the interviews, we used to ask them, did you signal the program? And they said they don't even know about the signaling. Like they didn't even fill the application, because last season there were like obviously there are two applications, which is the obviously one is the main eras application, and then there are another performer which has a deadline of 19 there are two deadlines for that. Like the last year it was like 19th of September, and the second deadline was the I think after 10 days. So I think so. You should plan things ahead of time. You should know each and every aspect. You should reach out to the program, try to be in touch with them. Also, do your wise choose your programs wisely, because sometimes what you do, you try to use resources like Frida and the Resident Explorer, and sometimes they are outdated. But let's suppose if you're applying to any program that shows on Frida or Residence Explorer that this program has the IMG's percentage of like 80%, you will be excited. Oh, they have 80% IMG rate, so let's apply there. But when do you open their application like website, you come to know that they only have around 5 spots, and out of 5 spots, like 4 are from the Caribbean. Okay, so now obviously it's the percentage would be true. Like they're having 80% from IMGs, but then how would you and one so if out of 5, 4 would be from the Caribbean they would be Caribbean graduates, and one would be from the American from the America. So in this case, it's advisable to go through every website, because you are investing a lot of money before like applying like 26, even if it's $26 per program. And if you're applying for 300 programs, I think it would be more than $5,000. You're investing a lot of money. Then why don't you invest a lot of time before applying and search each and every website? Okay, and or you can even tailor, for example, let's suppose you are having that these are the 10 most wanted programs for you. You could tailor your personal statement and write a separate personal statement for all of those 10 programs according to the website. See what are their strengths, And regarding the personal statement, when you are done with your writing about your tell me about yourself, why I am, and then you have to mention your strength. And it's not just I am flexible, I am this, I'm this. You have to give an example. Even if you have to mention less number of strengths, like 1 to 2 or 3, you have to prove that if you have a strength, then how would you prove that you have this strength? And if you have any red flag, you have to mention. And if also one more thing, if you think that there is something that should be, you have to mention it to the program. Just tell to the program in the personal statement. But this doesn't mean that if I am having something which I have to be, I want to shout to the program that I failed step one, or I want to shout that I did not match in the first season, because sometimes you have to be diplomatic as well. But sometimes if there is something which you cannot hide and it's not easy to hide, then you can you address that in the personal statement. And the last thing, obviously, the geographic preferences that matters in the program, and then also mention that what are short-term goals, long-term goals, how they align with the program, how will you be able to bring value to that program, because this is what all the programs want to listen. Sounds good. So I think we touch about the personal, because every aspect, like the personal statement, CV, letter of interest, letter of intent, signaling, CV, and when applying for the programs, it's a separate domain, and one session is not enough to cover everything. I know we started the session at 1 and it's already 2:45, and I really have to leave before 3. So it's not that we don't have enough time to discuss each and everything, but what we can do is we can consider doing the sessions regularly. And for example, let's suppose the next session we could do for the personal statement, exactly like what exactly the programs want to listen or want to read or stuff like that. And also one thing I really want to jump into is the ALS and BLS certification. I think Dr. Sarah also recommended that because it's also one of the filtered. I know it's very crazy that just the ALS BLS certification, on the basis of that, you would be filtered out, even if you have great scores. So try to just like focus on the experts advice that okay, what they should do. Like getting the ALS or BLS certification is just like 4 hours task, like more, or might be just 1 day task. So get it done, and then upload in your system. And is there any person from our in our meeting who is having the transition license, or who was working as a physician under supervision? Oh, okay, I think there's no one there. So because they're also one of the filter, because some programs would have a filter for that as well. I just wanted to mention about that. So I think we went
Is it
through almost everything. I'm sorry.
Sorry, is it okay if I can just ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead. Why not?
Sure. So we talked about US clinical experience and observership. So if during an observership you had the opportunity to examine patients and take histories, so would that be hands-on?
Okay, so now it's I would say a double-ended sword. What happens here is, let's suppose if it's New Jersey. In New Jersey, you're not allowed to do that. If you are doing that, this means that's not legal. And let's suppose if you did that and you're also writing in the letter of recommendation, your preceptor is writing that, this means that the preceptor is not following the state rules. So now what happens is, obviously, if even if you cross the filters, but when the program consider that, they're gonna ask, oh, okay, so you are from New Jersey. I'm also from, might be California person would not know about New Jersey, but if there is a program in California or in New Jersey, you're applying there, that person would obviously know about their state, right? So they would say, oh, okay, you did US clinical, you got the hands-on experience, and how did you do that? Did you get the malpractice insurance? You would then obviously if you say no, then they would ask like, why did you not get the malpractice? It's not legal. Then that's you did the hands-on experience that not even legal in the states. And why did you do that? You're not a person who we can trust, because you can have even violate the policies of our hospitals when you're in residency. So, but if you're having, if you did US clinical experience, you did hands-on, you definitely mention that in your CV that yes, this is hands-on. But one more thing, also ask your preceptor to write that experience as a hands-on experience in your letter of recommendation. Let's suppose if your letter or if you write hands-on on your CV, but your preceptor wrote that this was just an observership in the letter. So this means that this is also a conflict, right? And now one person is lying, either you or either a preceptor. So who would they trust, right? So you have to consider and you have to be keen in this. Like if you are getting the hands-on, make sure that your preceptor also write it down as a hands-on, not just the observership on the letter.
So what if it's an observership by name, but you do take history basically? So how would you tackle that?
So history taking, you can take history in the observerships. The
Okay.
only thing you cannot do in the observership is the physical examination. You can do everything in the hospital, presentations, history taking, communication with the patient, counseling, write notes. You can do that. But the hands-on experience means you were able to do the physical examination.
Okay. Okay. That sounds great.
This is the difference.
Okay.
I know
And
that people would confuse, and also electives, in electives, you are a medical student and you do hands-on because you touch the patient, you physical. So that's why it's hands-on, it's elective. But in the observership, it's just observership. And then for hands-on externships, which you mostly do after your graduation, then you get the experience. So if I would compare electives and hands-on externship, they are almost the same thing. But the only difference is the electives are within the graduation year, and then the hands-on experience for the externship would be after that.
yeah, but what if you do the observership while you were a medical student?
Okay, so if you did the observership during when you were a medical student, then obviously you will be just writing it an observership because it's not because you can do observership at any point. Even the people do observerships before even coming to the med school
Mhm.
to just shadow the physicians.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
And the second thing is, how would you consider a score of 248 in step 2 for the IM match?
Do you need a visa or not?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you need a visa. Okay, so if you are reaching out to the programs, then you are gonna get a lot of interviews because last season there was one folk who did not who was not able to get a lot of US clinical experience, and his score was 222 and 237. No, sorry, no, it was 242 and 237 around that, and he got 20 interviews.
Mhm.
He was a visa requiring IMG. The
Okay.
reason he was able to call the programs, he was able to be in touch with a lot of programs, attending the virtual seminars which they conduct throughout the season or even before starting the season, like before September, to just know what other candidates, what are the candidates who are interested in their program.
Mhm.
So because I got one interview in the sense that I was able to communicate with the program. It was just a hospital. I just emailed them that, do you guys provide the opportunity for the observership? And that program did not have the residency at that time. So I asked them that, do you provide this opportunity? They said, no, we are not providing any opportunity. We will be providing the opportunities to only the American graduates as we are starting the residency next year, like in the coming season. So, oh, okay, okay. I thought, okay, so you guys are approved for residency. They said, no, we are not approved yet, but we have applied for the accreditation and most likely we will be approved by November. I said, oh, okay, I would definitely apply to your program because I am in from your state and I think so I would be a good fit for this program as well if you are getting the accreditation. And then the program was approved in November. And then when they were approved, I applied them immediately, and then they offered me the interview. So this is how, if because even if you don't consider that if you're emailing any person that you are not going to get anything, because sometimes you get something from nowhere, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
that's
reach out to the people, ask for help, and then ask for assistance, ask for the expert's advice. Because if you are trying to do everything by your own, then I don't think so. It's a good idea because obviously everybody needs a mentor.
I see. So you're saying that 248 is not a bad score?
No, it's not a bad score. It's above average score because if you see the national average, it's like just 246, I believe. So it's above average score. You will be able to cross a lot of filters. But then if because obviously if the program has 5,000 applications, there will be like 2,000 people who will cross the filters, let's suppose. Now,
Mm.
out of 2,000, they're now gonna consider to send interview to just 200 people, right? So
Mhm.
if you are the one of the person that you have crossed the filter, but you are in touch with the program as well, then obviously they will definitely send you the interview, because there is no point of not sending the interview because you are interested in the program, right?
Mhm. I see. And another question is like I have basic science research, so around 3 publications in basic science. Is that okay for an IM match?
Okay, so you have 3 publications.
Yes, in basic
When do
science.
when were they published?
In the last 2 years or so, last 2 to 3 years.
Okay, in last 2 year, were they after med school or before?
They were during med school.
Or during med school? Okay. So if your research was published during med school, then I would definitely add that into the CV, if even if it does not coincide with IM. The reason is because while we are doing our medical school, we don't know which specialty we are going to apply. And it's
Okay.
completely normal to not know which specialty you are going to be applying, right? Because you don't know much about the specialties. But if you are having, like, let's suppose you are having those type of research within this year when you're applying for match after graduation, then the program would consider, okay, this person is doing basic stuff after resident, also after med school. This means this also person has the interest in the basic research as well. Or this, or if you are not, let's suppose if you want to add the basic research, definitely, even if you have after you have done it after your graduation, then explain in the personal statement, I was initially interested in this stuff, but now I'm considering for the IM. So that's why, but I do have the publication, so have attached. Just explain them.
So the
Right.
thing is like I worked as a research fellow in a lab at our
Okay.
university,
Okay.
and that's how I got these publications working with them. So we did take samples from patients, and then we kind
Yeah.
of it was more like an endocrine.
Definitely upload that. Definitely upload that. Tell them, yes.
So that could be considered as an impact as one of the 3 experiences that we could talk on, even if it's basic science research for
Yes,
I.
yes, it will be. It can be considered because these days research is very important,
Mhm.
because there is a CGME requirement for every resident. They have to do some type of research every year, and few programs are more focused, but few are less. But everybody want a person who knows about research, who has already the papers. So I
Mhm.
think so now not having research in your application is considered a red flag,
Okay.
because everybody needs a research, like the program director want to know that are you interested in research. If you have never been contributed to any research, then how would you be able to do it during residency? Because the residency is not easy, because you have to invest a lot of time then. But if you have to research during residency, then it's going to be hard for you. So that's why some programs would prefer people who have research.
Mhm.
And also it depends on the program, if they are more oriented towards research because they want to have impact in the scientific world. Because basically now we are not becoming just physicians, we are becoming the physician scientists.
I see. I see. And we talked about observership. So, like, if I have an observership in September, how can I get the LOR in time for uploading it?
Okay, so if you are doing observership in the month of September,
Mhm.
it was the same scenario with me. So I started observership in the month of September, but then I asked my letter writer that if he can give me the letter of recommendation on 16th of that month,
Mhm.
but also mentioned that I will be doing in the letter that I will be completing this whole month.
Mhm.
And he has observed me for like 2 weeks, but I'm gonna be completing the whole month in this hospital.
Got it.
So he gave me the letter on 16, and then I was able to get it released before March, sorry, September, whatever the end date was during my time.
Mhm.
So then he gave me the letter recommendation. I was able to assign to the programs.
Okay, that's a good aspect. Thank you. And now you mentioned about the SLERs. So is this something we ask our US preceptors to give us?
Is it SLERO or IMSEL?
In the presentation, it was SLER.
Oh, was it SLOE?
I'm not sure. What I wrote down is SLER.
Oh, Dr. Sarah, are you there?
Yes, yes. So that's the standard letter of the IMSL, standard evaluation letter.
Oh, it's the same
Yeah.
IMCell, IMSCL, International
Yes.
Standard Letter Evaluation. Okay, so it's IMCell. It will help you to cross the filters because when you get the IMCell, because you are able to upload that. Okay, so this is the letter from the chief, and a few program have a filter that they need one chief letter, so
So
you will
is
be able
this
to cross that
so is
filters.
this the same as the chairman letter from your medical school?
So it's the same, but you can get it from anyone who you worked for 3 months.
Okay, okay. Because no, like our university is has asked our clerkship director to prepare a letter because he's the chairman of the clerkship and he's working as the chairman of the department. So he's gonna produce letters for the graduates. So
Okay.
is that the same as the the IMSLE or the
So
letter?
okay. So if they are preparing a letter for you, and where's the university?
So this is Al Faisal in Riyadh.
Oh, okay, in Riyadh. So it should coincide with the IMCell format. Like if you search the format on Google, just type IMCell format, and then
Mhm.
IRAS will give you the format. And if it's coincide with that, then it will be considered the IMCell. Otherwise, not. Because sometimes if the faculty is creating a letter of recommendation for you, that's mostly the dean's letter, so that's
Mhm.
why it's different. But what you do is IMCell is not just the letter is a letter of recommendation. It's just it provides you the information and like comments about you, but that could be attached to one of the letter from the dean. Like that, let's suppose I would do is just get a dean letter and then
Okay.
IMCell from that person, and then get both attached, and then obviously get the signature and then upload from the system from there, that they can upload both together as a one
Okay.
letter.
Okay. So I do know one of the consultants who works in Riyadh. He did his residency here in the US and like he has lots of degrees and like he's very well known. So do you think I should try to get a letter of recommendation from him as well?
You not have enough letters from the US?
No, I do. I think I will by the end of the time. I should have at least four letters, four or so.
Now it depends on the value of the letter. If you think that person would be able to give you a very strong letter of recommendation, then you can use one. But if you think that these four letter of recommendation would be more valuable, then I think upload these four from the US. But if you compare both of the letters, the US letter would be preferable as compared to a person who is out of the US, even if they did residency here in the US.
Mhm. And how long should an LOR be? Like what I heard is that the longer the LOR, it means more personalized it is. So what's like the length of a good LOR?
No, no, no. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It matters, but it all matter what he has right, because obviously if it's a generic letter they would just upload one page, but if it's a personalized it would be around 2 pages.
Okay.
But let's suppose, like for example, if we are providing the service for sometimes what happen is the letter writers, they are very busy. They just ask the candidate that, oh, could you please bring your letters, and then we are going to just sign and upload. Then the candidates make a mistake, they just write all the good aspects of them, that they were like in the top 10% of the students, they did everything, they are like the angels, like they would describe the letter like they're like
Mm,
angels. And
I
now
see.
the program director would easily caught this letter, that this letter is not from a letter writer, this is a letter from a candidate who has given it to the letter writer to just sign and upload. And this is how it works. But for example, let's suppose if we are writing letter, like someone, there are people who are coming to us to just seek that our letter writer is asking that if he can write the letter recommendation, get signature. What we are doing is like we assess that person, that what experiences they have, and then we send them a file which is the ACGME core competencies, and we want to assess like each and every aspect about what are the communication skills, are they willing to go above and beyond. And also one more thing, a good letter will also have a line or so that what are your weaknesses you are working on. Because if you have these type of lines in the letter, this indicates that okay, this is a very genuine letter. Because if a candidate would write their own letter, they would just write their strengths, that's it. And
Mhm.
if a letter writer will write the letter for you, he would address what are your weaknesses and how are you working. But obviously he is not going to write any red flag that's considered your weakness. But let's suppose if you are working on some